My pleasure to introduce Jason Ding, and then I'm going to hand it over to Jason for the better part of an hour. Jason is Executive in Residence and Director of the Tech Health Accelerator at Tech Edmonton. For those of you who are not familiar with Tech Edmonton, Tech helps technical entrepreneurs accelerate their growth. In addition to being a commercialization agent for the University of Alberta Technologies, Tech Edmonton operates Greater Edmonton's largest accelerator for early stage technology companies, both from the perspective of university spin-offs and companies from the broader community. Jason is responsible for managing the activities of the Tech Health Accelerator with a particular focus on working with Alberta Health Services and relationships with multinational strategic partners. Jason founded H2 Technology Consulting and is a chartered accountant and a chartered business valuator. Prior to working at Tech, he was the Deputy Biotechnology Leader for Deloitte in Canada and Vice President and Director in Deloitte's Corporate Finance and Valuation Practice, and a financial auditor of public companies with KPMG. Jason has also been an executive for a number of early stage companies to assist them with licensing, mergers and acquisition related activities, valuation, and financial transactions. Prior to working in the finance industry, Jason worked as a science reporter for CBC Radio and as an ombudsman for the University of Alberta. Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Ding.
Thanks, Peter. I'm so pleased to have a chance to talk today, but first thing what I want to do is I actually want to acknowledge everyone who's come up and presented today. I mean, your courage is exactly what we need in this province with respect to building the industry that we want, and so again, I want to make sure that we give a big round of applause for everyone who presented today. Like I say, I feel very lucky to have the opportunity to talk about what we're doing. In a lot of ways, we're actually like a startup company ourselves. Tech Edmonton formed in 2006, and the particular program that I want to talk about and focus on today actually only started about a year ago. And so, you know, we're still working through our growing pains and learning and trying to figure out exactly what it is that we can do to best serve the customers that we're trying to approach and trying to serve. And so what I want to do today in the talk is talk a little bit about where we come from, or where we've come from the perspective of tech, who we are, and really, you know, what have we done to make ourselves who we are today, and then really dive into the program that we're building around the Health Accelerator. The takeaway message today really is a couple of things. Number one, and I think we all know this, growing a technology company is difficult. Even if you have strong support, even if you have deep experience, you know, you're going to have growing pains no matter what you do, and you're going to come across all sorts of things that you're not going to be able to control, and it's going to be difficult. And I think we all acknowledge that that is the case. But, you know, those who access the system, those who use organizations like Tech Edmonton or Innovate Calgary, Alberta Innovates Corp, National Research Council, and other resources that are out there do better, because they access expertise and people who've been through the system before, and people who have their own experience about how to get products through or services through the system and through commercialization. That it is always better to really rely on expertise outside of your island of one or two. Good technologies as well and young companies being developed by the right team can find financing. I mean, we hear all the time that financing is in short supply and you know, we're starving for money. But you know, if you look at even in the health industry on the biotechnology side, where dollars are available from the venture capital community and where investments are being made, for instance in the US and even in Canada, you know, there is money out there. You have to go out and get it, and it's hard, but it's there and it's available, and for the right technology with the right value proposition on the right team, you can find it. And lastly, that we are working on building a health innovation accelerator in Alberta focused on de-risking opportunities and de-risking, you know, the technology and de-risking the company for growth and for investment. And I'll talk a little bit about how we're doing that. So who we are, Tech Edmonton is, again, formed in 2006. All universities have a technology management group or ILO office. And what we've done is we've spun that out. And we've spun that out, again, similar to Innovate Calgary, and partnered that with Edmonton Economic Development, or EEDC, at the City of Edmonton. And so we're a joint venture partner with a technology mandate and an IP mandate focused on the university, but also with an economic development mandate to support technology companies in the community. We're a not-for-profit joint venture, and now we've grown to about 60 staff and contractors, effectively in 3 groups. Our first group is technology management, and about a quarter of our staff still work in that area, supporting new patents and new technologies and new discoveries that come out of the university. About 10 additional staff members then focus on our incubator space. So we own the 4th floor of the historic Bay Enterprise building downtown in Edmonton, and we support about 20 to 25 companies on that space. We also do entrepreneur development work, so seminar series on marketing and finance and going to market, and all of the different sort of pieces, hopefully, we're able to cover that a company might need. And then the last group within Tech Edmonton is the business development group, of which I'm part of. And so this is effectively a company creation, company support group. There's about 35, 40 individuals in that group supporting companies to grow. So how do we help? Access to the community, access to investors, access to expertise, space, and of course training. And we're a little distinct in North America globally because of our model. We're a joint venture model. Our HR practices are unusual from the perspective of wanting to bring in experienced entrepreneurs, analysts, and getting them out. Our turnover rate is actually quite high, but it's because we're trying to train people in companies and push them out into executive roles or into senior roles in companies so they can apply that expertise within these organizations. And we have a strong commitment to measurement. And those of you in the IT space will be familiar with how important measurement is. Understanding your metrics, understanding your value proposition, understanding those value inflection points that are really going to drive value in your company require measurement. And so we're very, very connected or committed to measurement as part of our business model. And I'll get to that just shortly in a minute. And then, of course, networks. And that's partnerships with universities, with Innovate Calgary, with the University of Lethbridge, and across the province as well as nationally. So why work with us? Tech clients do better. And we look at that from an employment growth perspective and a one-year survival rate perspective. And again, the messaging here is work with the system because there are supports here to really support your company. But these are the other metrics that we actually measure. These are all the other things that we look at when we look at whether or not we're making a difference to our clients and whether or not we're actually truly delivering value to the companies that we work with and to the researchers that we work with. In terms of annual gross revenue that we've generated, employment created, total sales, whether that's domestic or international, financing raised for companies, R&D investment that we've done with companies or that have been invested, products launched, those are all important key metrics that we measure on a regular basis to ensure that we are actually making a difference. And so, these are some key ones nationally and internationally that we've been successful on with respect to our mandate. So we've been very lucky. In 2014, we were named the Startup Canada's Incubator of the Year. The UBI Index out of Sweden named us number 3 business incubator in North America and 10th globally. And this is a bit of a sense then of the number of clients that we work with on a regular basis. And again, we cover all areas, not just health, but all industry areas, oil and gas and IT and natural sciences. And so, in terms of the number of companies, the breadth of the companies that we work with, this is, a bit of a snapshot of what we did last year. And then a bit of a breakdown as well then on the work that we've done across that sector. And you can see that health is a very, very large piece of the pie. And the reason why health is a very large piece of the pie, which is a perfect segue into the next piece, is the work that we're doing on the Health Accelerator. The Health Accelerator program is a province-wide program. We are working in partnership with Innovate Calgary on this particular program. And they are a strong partner with respect to the support that we give each other with opportunities and companies that we jointly support. It's funded by the federal government, the provincial government through Alberta Innovates, as well as the Ministry of Innovation and Advanced Education, and by the City of Edmonton with respect to our mandate. And really the goal of the Health Accelerator is to make Alberta a national leader in health innovation. But there are gaps. There are certain areas within Alberta, there are there are cluster limitations with respect to what we have in Alberta to be able to do what we need to do. And so the Accelerator really is focused on supporting companies to be able to bridge to the right resources inside the province and the right resources outside of the province in order to support companies to make sure that they are successful. And I'll tell you a bit about that. But why Alberta? Why health? One of the key advantages, and I've spoken to lots of medical device, I've spoken to lots of pharmaceutical companies globally around the advantages that they see in Alberta. And one of the big advantages that they see is actually our one system, provincial system. That there is an opportunity with respect to the metrics, real-world evidence, and other opportunities around data and analytics that they see that can be mined here in Alberta that they can't do in other provinces. Of course, our sector growth has actually been quite astounding. We're seeing more and more entrepreneurial companies and new organizations being formed all the time. This statistic here, 20% of new life science companies, and actually most of these here, come from BioAlberta's most recent report, which you can actually find out there. And in early November, they'll be launching their 2015 report with the new stats. But generally, the environment is good. SMEs in Alberta generated over $1 billion of revenue for the province in life sciences. Alberta companies are a prolific source of fantastic research and researchers, and we're recognized by multinational companies on that front all the time. And then we have a very strong community of support, and we have great programs in place to support companies, like our provincial SHRED program, like our Alberta Innovates Corps, like Alberta Enterprise Corporation, pushing to support bringing venture capital firms here into the province to support growing companies. So when we looked at building the program, these are the challenges that we looked at. And I'll address each of these over the course of this talk. So lack of access to expert services, availability of capital, collaboration with industry and really understanding market needs and customer needs, the voice of the customer, technology adoption by healthcare providers. So these are the four key pillars of the program, and what we've built around this program is really to support that, to support and resolve some of the gaps that we've noticed in these areas. For those of you asking about or wondering about what areas within health we focus on, diagnostics, medical device therapeutics, health IT of course, but also nutrition and nutraceuticals, agriculture biotechnologies where they relate to human health, and testing and services. So let me talk first about lack of access to expert services. This is our current offering at Tech now. As I mentioned, our business development group is made up of three types of individuals. We have analysts. Those analysts are typically master's or PhD trained, then got an MBA, and then are looking for ways to be able to apply their education and their knowledge in the system. And so they work with us. We have many of them working with us as analysts. We have consultants who work with us. There's a couple actually in the room today who are experts in specific areas. So in the room we have Joe Prastawa, who is a regulatory expert, so helping with 510K approvals or product licensing or clinical trial approvals or ISO certification, GLP, GMP, et cetera. And then we have executives and residents who are entrepreneurs, who have been in the business, who have started companies, who have run companies, who have exited companies. Technology management, of course, I've mentioned on the IP side, entrepreneur development with respect to the various services that they do around training, as well as operating our top floor. But we've been able to add to that expertise with this program. So intellectual property and strategy, we've added a number of IP specialists. We've expanded our EIR and analyst program. So we've got an EIR in Calgary, working with Calgary companies. We have a number of analysts as well that we've hired with specific expertise around things that are relevant both in Edmonton and Calgary around medical devices and imaging. We've added as well a biomedical engineer to the staff, not to do fabrication work, but really to do project management work. So delivering and helping to do project management around things that are relevant to what is required in a company to really get their product to market. We've also added 2 IT specialists. So these are digital IT software developers who are focused on supporting IT applications, and again, project management work, less on sort of actual software delivery, but more on looking at models and product management associated with your IT products. We've expanded our regulatory support team, as I mentioned, so we have 2 individuals working in that area now. And then I'll talk a little bit about the non-dilutive angel investment, VC investment, as well as the product pull specialist in the next couple of slides. So this would be an example of a company that we're working with. This is a brand new spin-off. We're working with them on regulatory needs. So this is a heart perfusion, ex vivo heart perfusion company. They developed basically a technology to keep a heart or an organ alive and keeping it ready for transplant. Sorry for the gruesomeness of the picture, but you know, the work that we're doing with them is around IP strategy. We're assisting them on the regulatory side, market opportunity with respect to how to get this product to market, and a business plan. On the availability of capital side, we have a couple of different strategies that we're pushing hard on here. On the angel investment side, we have Tech VA, which is our angel investment group. So this is about a team of about 150 high net worth individuals with chapters in Edmonton, Calgary, Kelowna, Winnipeg, Phoenix, who are interested in investing in technology opportunities. And so we place opportunities in the health sciences and all areas actually in front of that group. We also leverage our relationship with Innovate Calgary and their Invest Tech program, which is again an angel investment program. But we're also starting, well, actually we've also developed relationships with angel investment firms outside of Alberta. So Boston Harbor Angels, Life Science Angels, based out of San Francisco, Vantech out of Vancouver, and others. We have an opportunity where we are horse trading opportunities. So not a lot of, let's call it cross-border deals, but where they've got a deal in front of their investors, we've got a deal in front of ours, you know, we do swaps. Or if we know that they have specific investors within their groups that are particularly interested in Alzheimer's, we will put those deals in front of those angels. On the institutional investment side, we've partnered with an investment bank out of Toronto, Bloom Burton. They are a healthcare-specific venture capital or investment banking fund or firm. And so they do what an investment banking firm does: equity research, they do corporate finance, they raise capital, they do mergers and acquisitions, they help with licensing. And last year, they did about $250 million of deals for Canadian companies. So they're a great firm and a great partner. The other really interesting thing about Bloom Burton is that they have the only healthcare financing forum left in Canada. So those of you who've been in the industry for a while, you know, BioFinance in Toronto in April, BioPartnering in Vancouver in February, BioContact in Quebec City in October, those conferences are all gone. And the only one left standing actually is Bloom Burton's conference. And so what's been great is, because of the relationship that we have with them, we have a number of Alberta companies now that presented at the last forum, whereas before we basically had none. The other piece to this is Bloom Burton comes to Alberta on a regular basis. So 4 times a year, and they've been to Alberta 4 times already. They meet with companies. They spend an hour with each company, and we set this all up for them and for the companies. And they provide advice on opportunities that they see in the market, risks they see in the market with respect to the product or the service. And they provide advice on how to make your company financeable based on what they see and what they are involved in. They provide a 2-page report to every company who comes in and talks about their opportunity. And of course, Bloom Burton is looking for deal flow. So, you know, if they do a deal for a company in Alberta and finds the money, fantastic. We also have 2 VC partnerships. I only have one up here. So CTI is a VC fund out of Montreal. They just recently closed a $134 million round in November last year. A third of that money is to go to Canadian companies outside of Quebec. And so they've signed a partnership with Alberta because of the quality of the deals that they see here. Bloom Burton's done the same, CTI's done the same, and the feedback that we've gotten from them is Alberta technologies are fantastic, which is why they're committed to coming here on a regular basis. So CTI has been here once already. They're coming again in November and looking for deal flow and opportunities that they can invest in. So an example of a company that we've been supporting is MTI. MTI is a metabolomics company. They just actually won the 2014 North American Frost & Sullivan Award for Technology Innovation Leadership. And they've been really chugging along as a company. And we, in this case, supported them in a lot of angel financing work to get them to where they are today. Actually, in this case, we also put an executive in residence in place. We had an analyst helping with them. Again, market opportunity, business planning, and really looking at where their opportunity for their product can go. Collaboration with industry is a really important topic. We have really focused on this one as well from the perspective of making sure that there's an opportunity to be able to hear from your customer what they're really looking for. And it's that demand pull process that we're trying to drive into the iterative efforts of companies as they continue to push their products along. So we've partnered with 3 pharmaceutical companies. Johnson & Johnson, Merck, and Genzyme have all signed on as strategic partners of the Health Accelerator. And what that basically means is that they are committed to being in Alberta on a regular basis. All 3 of these companies have been to Alberta twice already, once to Edmonton, once to Calgary. They're back in Edmonton in November to meet with companies and to meet with innovators and entrepreneurs on innovative products. The really important piece around this and the visits is that what we are trying to do here is not hollow Alberta out of technologies, right? What we're not trying to do is cut deals and move technologies out of Alberta right away. What we're trying to do is focus on the relationships that are important with companies like this. So you're developing a medical device, you talk to Johnson & Johnson, who has a very, very strong medical device presence, to say, look, this is what we're developing. We've got a couple of indications or disease areas that we could go after. What are you seeing with respect to the market around where you see the opportunity for this device? Or, we're looking at doing a clinical trial. It sounds like you have an interest in our technology. We're planning on doing the design this way. Is that going to fit with your needs with respect to what you know about regulatory approval for the device or the marketability of the product when we've completed the trial? And so, these relationships are about, or these opportunities in terms of bringing these companies here are about helping companies, helping entrepreneurs develop the relationships they need in order to be successful with their companies. We're talking to other med device companies, we're talking to diagnostic companies to be able to move this forward, and we're hoping that we're going to be able to announce a couple of new partnerships over the next little while. Nanospeed is an example of another company that we've worked with. They're a point-of-care diagnostic for vitamin D deficiency. And so it's a 10-minute test, basically 1 prick of blood onto basically what looks like almost a pregnancy test. And you'll know within 10 minutes whether or not you're vitamin D deficient or not. And so we've assisted them in a global distribution network in Europe, China, the Philippines, and India in terms of really helping them with getting their product to market. The last piece is technology adoption by healthcare providers. This is, of course, another very, very important area and one that we've heard lots in the Alberta system on things that need to be changed and things that need to be worked on. And so Alberta Innovates Health Solutions, when they came in as a partner of the Health Accelerator to fund us as a matching partner, they basically said, look, as part of our funding to you, we want you to hire 2 people to work specifically on what we can do to help support the system on their needs and whether or not there are companies with technologies that can help help the system. So one of the really interesting things that Alberta Health Services has done in partnership with AIHS is create strategic clinical networks. The SCNs, which some of you may know, are effectively innovation sandboxes. These are groups that have been brought together, practitioners from across the province, to look at whether or not there are different ways of being able to do things, whether or not there are ways to either apply a technology within the clinical pathway or change the process that will either do one of 2 things, improve patient outcomes or reduce cost. And that's perfectly reasonable for the system. And so, part of what we're doing and part of what we've been tasked to do is look at how we work with the strategic clinical networks on defining needs and defining their needs and understanding what the demand is within those networks to be able to make change in the system, and whether or not that's a technology or a process change or some other change to be able to make a difference. And so, so we have two individuals, two consultants who are specifically working on that particular issue, who are working with the SCNs on that demand pull, and who are working with technology companies who may have technologies that might be a fit to those SCNs. So we have a couple. We have one project that is in right now for a pilot. We have a second one that we're hoping will start in October. And this is a slow go, and it's a bit of an experiment for us as well in terms of how we do this, but it's an important thing to do, to be able to look at whether or not we can change how things are how things are being done, and whether or not we can improve on them. The only other thing I want to say here as well is that there has to be funding available to the SCNs to be able to do this work. It's a little unfair for the system to be able to pull people away from doing patient care in order to run pilots and tests for unproven technologies. And so, there has to be a way to be able to fund this particular research or this particular work, and we're hoping that a number of options are proposed, and some of them will be supported to be able to help move this process along. So we're only 1 year into this program. We received our funding and launched this program in effectively October of last year. So we're 1 year in. We've been able to work with a whole bunch of companies in the space, and I think we've been able to make a difference. But we're, again, a startup like many of you in the room. We're continuing to grow, and we're continuing to look for feedback on how we can improve the customer experience and how we can improve what we're doing to make sure that we are meeting your needs. And so, we're doing that, of course, in partnership with a number of organizations in the province. This is a province-wide program. As I mentioned, University of Lethbridge College has signed on. We're working with Red Deer College as well on a number of different initiatives. And I've mentioned a number of other industry partners that we have working in collaboration with what we're trying to build here in Alberta. So again, the takeaway is as I said at the beginning, this is hard work. It's going to take a lot of effort to be able to get your product to the goal line, your service to the goal line. But use the system that's here. Use the resources that are here. Use the supports that are here to help you get there. And there is available support to be able to help you get to the end. And hopefully, we are making a difference in building that health economy and that health industry we want to build here. Thank you very much. And happy to take questions.
So I'll field questions down here. I'm just going to make a couple of comments first. I've had the pleasure of working with Jason at Tech Edmonton for the last year and a half, and worked some teams through a few of the services that he'd mentioned up there. And if you're not taking advantage of it, do take advantage of it. Part of the challenge, Jason, and you can educate all you want, but there's a certain degree of personal risk that still has to be taken in order to be entrepreneurial, whether that's socially entrepreneurial or entrepreneurial in the context of creating and starting a company and getting it off the ground. And we've heard that there are talent gaps, not money gaps. And I'm wondering if you can comment on how you see some of those gaps closing through events like this, and also want to ask you a question and follow up to that on whether trying to be the best in Canada is actually a bar that's too low. What happens when you have a tech company competing against the likes of San Francisco, Cleveland, Boston, even San Diego, and being clusters of innovation that are well funded? Why not set the bar to compare that?
Okay, so let me talk about the first question. On the talent question, it is a challenge, I think, for a number of companies here to be able to find specific executive roles or people to fill specific executive roles, and that is always going to be a challenge. Not always, but it's going to take time for us to be able to fill in that gap. I was moderating actually a panel last week that Export Development Canada had put on around life sciences and exporting technologies outside of Canada to countries, and that particular question was brought up. And you know, Silicon Valley was used as the example. It didn't happen in a day. It took time. It took entrepreneurs who took risks. And having gone through the process of, you know, failing, succeeding, raising capital, and doing all of those things that you need to do builds that expertise that we need. And we really just need more of that. And it's going to take time. One question that came up in particular was, you know, so does it make sense for us then, you know, there's an opportunity for us to hire someone as a CEO, you know, part-time, you know, to fly in, you know, 20% of the time and move the company along. It might, but generally, you know, our suggestion is, you know, try to really get that person to come here and be committed here, because that's going to make all the difference in the world with respect to, you know, directing the company and moving the company along. I've seen it work, but most of the time, I haven't. More times than not, I've seen it not work. Peter, I don't remember your second question.
So the second question had, you know, you've kind of tackled a little bit there, but, you know, I'll give you an example. So Rocky Mountain Venture Group in Canmore has said very clearly, we want to create Boulder of the North, a high-tech, wellness-based, sports-related cluster. They're starting to do that. Garmin's very much interested. They've started to make some investments in the space. Why is it so Canadian that we keep comparing ourselves inside this tight little box instead of trying to say we want to be one of the best contenders on an international stage instead of the best in Canada?
Well, so you've caught me on my wording, because I can't even say that we want to be the best in the world. But I think it's about goal setting, and I think it's about achieving, for us, where we want to get to first, right? And so, you know, we have a long road to hoe as well in terms of making sure that we have the critical mass in Alberta to be able to do what we want to do. I think that there are advantages. I think there are advantages here. You know, I did a raise for a company about 2 years ago. And the question, it was about 3 years ago, and the question was, well, so when are you moving to Silicon Valley? And after some discussion, it became pretty obvious, actually, that it made more sense to keep most of the company in Alberta. Shreds, low tax rate, and lots of sort of other benefits associated with cost of talent and other things meant that actually it made way more sense for the company to be located here, to open a marketing office in Silicon Valley. And to have a couple of key individuals there on that side, but really to keep the majority of the company here. And so I think there are lots of advantages. I think there is a very strong business case to keep companies in Alberta and to grow companies in Alberta, and I think we need to do more of that.
Yeah. Any questions from the audience? We're almost at the judge's stage. No more questions for Jason? All right, we're going to progress. Oh, one more. Hang on in the front. Melissa.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if you have a couple pearls of wisdom to share in terms of matching an investor's talent to a company. Like, it's more than just an investment of money, it's knowledge, expertise, and skills. So what kind of things are in the back of your mind when you're trying to find that fit?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, you definitely don't want dumb money. Dumb money helps sometimes, but you don't want it. Because it makes all the difference in the world if you have people who are working with you in the company that really understand what you need. I mean, for us, you know, with the previous company that I worked on in terms of the deal, the fit was relationships and contacts, and not just contacts on sort of the customer side, but contacts as well on the talent side. So in that particular case, you know, we opened up a marketing office in San Francisco. But they had, you know, 5 people that we could talk to who were product managers, or 5 people that we could talk to who had done, you know, SEO marketing, or, you know, a sort of strategic marketing function. That made all the difference in the world in terms of who we were able to bring in to really drive the business forward. But of course on the customer side as well, right? That and fit. So, you know, the other thing that was fantastic about that particular deal was that the thesis of the venture capital fund was SaaS for enterprise, right? Software as a service for enterprise companies. And so in terms of looking at sort of metrics and the things that they really saw in the industry that they had gone deep into, to be able to give us advice on things that were really truly value inflection points, makes all the difference. Now, you're not necessarily going to be able to find it at the angel stage, right? At the angel stage, you know, you're looking at smaller check sizes and people who, will be able to hopefully add to your company, but may not have that level of depth of expertise in the area. But certainly, you are looking for, not just cash, as you say. But those are some of the things that we definitely went through our minds.
So we have another minute or two before we're going to call the judges up on stage. Another minute. Anybody?
Can I just, maybe what I'll do is I'll say sort of two quick things. Yep. One, just in general, in terms of advice, and this again came up last week, advice to entrepreneurs: go as fast as you possibly can, particularly those who have patents, or some sort of IP protection. There's a limit on that, and your window to be able to, fend off competition from that perspective is very, very tight. And so just push hard, push fast, and get to where you need to get to as quickly as you possibly can. The other piece of advice, which I thought was fantastic, that came up at that panel session last week, was as well, there may be some reasons to care about, for instance, where your first sale comes from. And that's been the case for a couple of companies that have been supported in Alberta who really, really, really wanted to make their first sale in Alberta. But you know what? This is a global business, and this is global competition with respect to trade and products. And so, make your first sale where it makes sense and where it's easiest, because that will help you with being able to make your second sale and your third sale and being successful.
Thank you.